All right. Well, welcome everyone. And I am thrilled and excited and happy to have everyone here. We will be participating in on this auspicious day of February 22nd, time for an enlightened partnership and a deeper conversation. Part of how I got involved in wanting to do this, which let me introduce myself first. I'm Christy Michaels, and I am a priestess of Mary Magdalene for now going on since my ordination on 10/10/10. And I have been really passionate about getting some of the information about the Gospel of Mary out to the world, because I was shocked when I found out about it. And I heard Barbara Marx Hubbard talk, who in her last book before she passed put the Gospel of Mary Magdalene information in her book. She showed me where and how she did it. And then she said, if we really want to be in conscious, evolved relationships, then we better start gathering together with those of us who are actually exploring the edges of that and how it works, how are we doing, what kind of support do we need, and just be in the question and exploring what it would mean to be in a highly evolved conscious relationship. So I've invited a wonderful group of guests tonight to join us, and they will be sharing some of their ideas and their experiences with this phenomena of conscious relationship. Before I introduce them, I want to just kind of begin to lay out a little bit about the premise of this. We're doing this on the partnership number 222, February 22nd, and that's why we picked this date, because it's the partnership number at the mastery level. And I'm pulling ideas out of both the Gospel of Mary Magdalene and A Course in Miracles, because I found that ideas that expressed in the Gospel of Mary Magdalene were mirrored almost word for word in A Course in Miracles. And the Course in Miracles is a channeled writing that is basically trying to correct the misperceptions that much of the Bible had put forth, to give us a clearer idea about how to live heaven on earth. So, what does the Gospel of Mary Magdalene actually say about enlightened partnerships? Well, first off, it discloses a living demonstration. It is a beautiful expression of the relationship between Jesus and Mary. Unlike other books, it really kind of illuminates us about her being enlightened as well as him. So this is a beautiful stained glass window in the Isle of Mull in Scotland. It shows this hand fasting, which is a symbol of their deep love and intimacy. And the modeling ideas that we're looking at in this demonstration of sacred union is the fact that they're the source of love. They're sharing this love. It's not something I'm seeking to get love from you. There's an experience of being 100% equal, so there's no lack. There's a sense of joining in oneness. And then there's the integration of the feminine face of God and the masculine face of God. Now, this is what the Gospel of Mary Magdalene calls the anthropos state. And the state of anthropos means that you're both human and divine. It's kind of like there's a blueprint of your divinity that you are moving and growing into and developing, just like an oak tree would have an acorn, and the acorn doesn't become a banana tree, it becomes an oak tree. And so this is the anthropos state of wholeness, where we're both and. And then it also brings forth the idea of the ability to vision with the divine mind, because we see with our eyes, but seeing with the body's eyes is very different from the ability to vision and create a world living in love. So the body, Course in Miracles, of course, mirrors that, because they have a whole section on the body's eyes see separation of special love. And what happens when you're in special love, then there's also special hate. So you all know and probably have had experiences of finding your special love and then ending up breaking up and having this special hate come forward. Like, oh my God, it's like not fun. And part of the dynamics of special love and special hate is that you're the only one for me, which translates to special hate because it is based on a lie. And you're put up on a pedestal and there's expectations that are made of you. And so then when you don't follow through and meet those expectations, you get knocked off the pedestal. So attacks are often quite frequent in relationships that are fundamentally founded on this kind of thinking. And the body and how it looks and the sexual chemical chemistry is really critical. The relationship is based on ego gratification, not really on love. So that becomes a critical component. Special love also sees separation, but we are not separate from God, and we are all special and all a part of the all. So that's where we're living a lie when we're seeing this separation. But in order to know our oneness, we have to use this process called visioning. And the visioning comes from our divine mind or our true nature and being connected and understanding that we are equal as spirits. So the life that's in you is in the life that's in each other. It's the same life. It's the one life, and there's no difference and there's no separation. It's all the energy and love of God. This is one of my most favorite paintings. And even though this painting of Mary Magdalene is still called and labeled a sinner, because they didn't know any better back in that day. The thing about this painting is he's coming in, and it's one of the few paintings where they're actually on eye level, looking at each other. She is having, and he is having what the Course would call a holy encounter or a holy instant, where there's this true recognition of the truth of her being, and she's seeing the truth of his being. They're recognizing their holiness and embracing it and accepting it. So that creates what the Course calls a holy instant. And what happens in enlightened partnerships is you have more and more holy encounters, and you create holy instances. And every time you have a holy instant, according to the Course, you save yourself 1,000 lifetimes. So it might be worth it to have a few holy instances. Because in this dynamic of special love versus special hate, the little I, the lower self, needs approval to enhance itself, and it seeks that external love outside of itself. But the only real love is the love that exists within you. And the self that God created needs nothing because we are whole and complete. But there is this little I that would convince you otherwise. And that's half the battle of our work that we do in the world, is trying to allow ourselves to claim and step into our higher selves. But we've been inundated with images like this, particularly for women. I mean, we're just now having the hashtag Me Too movement, where women are getting to say, no, you don't get to beat me up. No, you don't get to rape me. No, you don't. And, so we've had to endure a lot of this. And of course, all the wars and everything, the men have had to endure a lot too, because they haven't been able to step into their authentic self either and be held and recognized. So we're going to explore a little bit more about what the true nature of their relationship was. And there are very few images that kind of really capture this sense of mutuality and equality in a way that is way more authentic and what we're trying to embrace. So in true love, in enlightened partnership, if there's a misperception, there's a call for remedy, but the remedy is of gentleness and love. So those are fruits of the Spirit, that we don't attack each other. We gently use compassion, acceptance, and love. And defenses can be laid down because there is not attack. There is no need for defenses because there's love is meeting you. And our partner's needs become our own because you want your partner to have their needs met, and you like in compassionate communication, you get curious about how are we going to meet this person's needs. So if there's a different point of view or a different strategy, it's okay. We just explore. Okay, you have a need. All right, let's get creative. Let's see how we can get this need met. And I have a need, and let's see how I can get mine. And there's this this curiosity and this willingness to kind of really see how we can get each of our needs met, because we're on a journey together to God consciousness, and we want to be living in love and living in a world in love. So being this Christ, Sophia, beautiful, equal partnership, which is few and far between, I'm sadly to say, when you look at the statistics on marriage success rates. So this is why when Barbara said, you better get together with people, I was like, yeah, let's do it. Come on. Let's talk about how do we create holy relationships, sourcing love from source. So each person is sourcing their love, and then they sharing that love. And there's no lack or limitation on the sharing of that love. It's all there. And so where there is this sharing, all separation vanishes as holiness is shared. This is one of my favorite lines out of the Course in Miracles. For holiness is power, and by sharing it, it gains its strength. And that's why couples who are practicing these principles of sharing their holiness, sharing their power, beholding the love in them, it's like their relationships become very powerful, because there's this gaining in strength, because they're moving to the truth of who they are for each other. And she understood this. You can see it from this one sentence in the gospel. It says, be in harmony. So that's the first step, is just being totally committed to being in harmony. And then you take inspiration from the manifestation of your true nature and you walk forth. So when you take inspiration from the manifestation of your true nature, what that means is that you're inspiring yourself. You remember a time that you were loving, and that love infuses you with inspiration, or a time when you were peaceful, and you remember that peace, and suddenly you're peaceful. And so by allowing yourself to be inspired by your true nature, then when you walk forth in together in the relationship, your chances of having a more peaceful, loving relationship become amplified. So it's all a wonderful possibility for creating heaven on earth. And so tonight's conversation, we're going to be using this graphic image to help us to kind of understand. I love this because it really kind of easily displays the difference between couples that are living below the line, and then, or if when we fall below the line and we get into judgment, or we get into some fear, and we're feeling at the effect of our partner, and we're blaming them or whatever. How do you get above the line? And more, I think what I'm seeing and hearing is that people are starting to learn how to live their life above the line. They're living in acceptance. They understand that they are a choice, that they're the cause, and they can take 100% responsibility if something's not working. They can take feedback, get feedback. They can be in the solution rather than in the problem. They can look for what is it, get clarity about what is it we really want, and how to respond rather than react with love instead of fear. So these are simple but not necessarily easy ideas. But this is the experience that, as it's shared in our conversation tonight, we're hoping we'll all be able to learn about how people do that, spend more of the time above the line than below the line. And then we have a series of questions, and you don't have to remember these questions, but I'm just going to highlight them very quickly, and then we may jump to some of these that I don't know we'll get to all the questions, but we'll do our best. So what are the principles of success in relationship? How are humor and kindness and sex fundamental to a happy relationship? And what do you do when you are triggered to save the relationship? How to be the one you are looking for by being the one looking for love, by looking for love within. So, we're shifting, because it's all we've been indoctrinated with, gotta find the one, you gotta find the one, right? But really, the one is the love that you want, and that love exists within us. So how do we remember to do that? And then we share that love, which makes it work a lot better. So we're going to have an organic conversation, and I've asked my dear friend Jan Jorgensen, author of Guy's Guide to the Divine Feminine, and Dr. Melissa Sophia Joy and her partner, G. Mauriva, and Quana Realis and Doug Wagon. They will be joining us. And I wanted them to each take a moment to kind of talk about their experiences. So Jan, I think you could talk a little bit about your book and she just got engaged to the love of her life. And so we'd love to hear from you.
Well, Christy, thank you for having me on for this topic. And somehow I feel qualified to speak about it, and I'll tell you why. And don't tell my children. I was sharing with my sisters one day that I had kissed 100 boys before I graduated from high school. I didn't say slept with them, but I have always just loved mixing it up with the opposite sex. I've had 3 major relationships, and the first one was very traditional, 23 years. And we lived that trajectory out, and it was, we did the American dream. And then I had that little tap on the shoulder of, you are here to teach and live the co-creation of a higher version of yourself first, and then to resonate that out and to attempt to have a relationship and create a new archetype for that. That's a pretty tall order. So the next relationship was what I call a transitional relationship, and it was very new age, and it was exciting and different. But I'm a monogamous person, and he said, oh, well, I think I should have a lot of girlfriends because dolphins have a lot of partners, and gurus and aliens. And I said, you're not any of those, buddy. So I learned a lot, and I learned what heartbreak feels like. It was a foreign thing for me. And I said, what is this vibration? So the third and final relationship that I'm in now with a partner of 9 years, we are glued together. Even when the first time I sat next to him and our arms vibrated, and we talked within an hour, and I said, I'm here to assist the planet to transform to a new way of being and thinking in partnership. He said, me too. And somehow this dance, we're both old-fashioned 50s kids. I'm 65 years old, and I feel crazy that I'm having all this wonderful, loving dating experience. But like all humans, after about 3 years, when those chemicals start dropping off, there has to be a mission, a co-creation sense of, I'm better with this person. The world is a better place. And we both have compromised and really changed. So he's traditional and new age. And like any relationship, to come to that deeply committed place, we weren't always perfect. We ticked each other off. And at one point, I was so exasperated, I actually said, I have to write a book for guys like you. And it's called A Guy's Guide to the Divine Feminine. What men and women, the women who are awakening and hearing spirit guide them for a taller order, and they have an old-fashioned guy next to them who feels left out, maybe emasculated, and who are you to change? I've been with you all these years. So what men and women need to know about the divine feminine, we are co-creating the new paradigm of peace. So I just thought, what would this topic be about? I was looking for my book, but I gave them all away. I have met so many women who are on the brink of leaving their partner. And so I thought, if I could just make like a little rubber mallet wake-up call to spell out things like, to tell men, I understand your deep confusion. What is this new language and attitude from the woman that you have lived with and you love. What does divine feminine mean anyway? It is a woman who is, through her intuition and connection with her divinity and spirit, hearing new ideations, seeing new visions as she meets other women, and their hearts are ignited in a new passion. And it's happening in 50s and 60s. There's just a change in priorities. So I spell out, what are women learning from who? What do they do in these sacred circles? I spell it out. What does it look like? And how does that change things for her partner at home? New words that the partners will want to learn, like setting sacred space. Ritual is a good thing. Intuition, initiation into your spiritual path. And the role change that is so important for her sense of living out her mission. And so again, I wrote this because my partner, even though he wasn't getting it on a level where he was in it, he could see the joy in the vibration. And as he learned to support and honor what I was doing, the joy that brought, on the edges of this new vibration, his soul and heart was starting to awaken to a higher direction and path as well. I worked very powerfully. In fact, some of the courses I took 2 times, I paid for them twice with Alison Armstrong. And with my coaching and in the book, I use a lot of her wording, which makes it safe for men to hear what you need and to provide that for you. And again, I know so many of the younger couples, and this is not gender specific. These are roles that we have traditionally played with each other, and there is a feminine of receivership. There is a masculine of protect and provide, and most people of my age are more comfortable with that, even though we are changing and transitioning into a place of more androgyny, where each one can choose to be the more feminine one or the more masculine one. We are transitioning into a place of love that isn't always tantric and physical and being together physically, but a vertical sharing of this divine love that is much bigger when the masculine and feminine, when the electric and masculine come together and totally fuse. That energy it's like an atomic energy. Of course, the physical release of orgasm, which can be with or without the actual physical act, as we're moving towards the 5th dimension, we can actually engage. But when we get into those levels of vibration, we are in the interdimensional state where we can access. And to do it with your partner is a phenomenal thing. My partner and I, we have to pinch ourselves, because everything we are asking for now is being brought to us in a gift in ways that we have never imagined, because we feel that often we are working from a very high template of, is this in alignment with our mission? Is this good for both of us? Is this interference from outside? And we meditate and we make the highest choice on everything. So you're probably going to say, did he read the book? No. He never did. But I've had to model. And
He's got the master there training him.
Well, it takes about 4 years for you to hold a person in divine unconditional love until they melt. There is that girding. It's a narcissism. It comes in so many different ways. So if you have a partner and you look at them and you look at them the way God looks at them, so lovable. After a while, that vibration of control or ego, it just doesn't have a place in your relationship.
Right.
Actually, you are not hooking into that.
So we're going to go into that in more detail here very shortly. Thank you, Jan. And her book is available on Amazon, so people can get that. I'm just going to do a little basic introductions. Okay, thank you so much, Jan. That was wonderful. Good to hear what has evolved for you guys. I've been there from the very beginning, and it's just been your patience and kindness and support as the awakening for you and him happened over this period of time. So it's beautiful to see the results. Thank you.
Thank you.
Melissa, Sophia Joy, and G. Mauriva. Am I saying your name right?
No, it's Geej. Geej Mauriva.
Oh, Geej Mauriva. Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
I would love to hear from you guys about your journey on this path to God consciousness together as a couple.
Well, thank you, Christy.
Yeah, thanks for letting us be here.
Really appreciate it. So I'll go ahead and begin. And I think first I'll say just a little bit of my background, kind of like you did, Jan. I have had several long-term relationships. I have been married to another person who is the father of my child. And my experience has been really about learning from each relationship how to use that relationship to help me understand both how I need to be in relationship to my ego and all of my parts that are connected to relationship in terms of getting activated or what have you, and really stepping into that higher vibration. And so it feels like this lifetime has been like one school after another of learning about relationships. And then I met Geej, and our relationship is one where I think I can both say for both of us is that we feel like we've graduated. Not that it's easy, because relationship in and of itself is not easy, because automatically we're bringing up each other's core wounds. That's part of what a relationship does. But it feels like we both have worked our stuff, so to speak, enough so that we have naturally some very important keystones that are here for us so that we know what to do when we get triggered. We know that it's not a good idea to lash out at the other person in anger. Of course we get angry, but how to deal with that in a way that's compassionate to ourselves and compassionate to another person. So we've been really working it. And it's amazing what has been blossoming for both of us. And just to let you know a little bit about how we met. So we've known each other for many years. We both live in Sebastopol. We've been in the same community, in the same dance community for many years. And whenever we first met each other, we were in different relationships. And then it came to a point where we finally weren't in a relationship. And I danced with him one night. And it literally felt like, because part of what I do is I'm an oracle for divine energies, for ascended master energy, for divine mother energy. And it literally felt like divine mother came through me and said, I love you. And my mind was going, who's there? What's happening? I don't understand. And she just kept on saying, I love you. I love you. I love you. And so I just let it flow. And then afterward, he was lit up like a Christmas tree. Like, what just happened? Yeah. So that was how we first got together. And then it took a few months of us feeling it out, because we were, again, in the same community. We've been in the same community for a long time. So we needed to make sure, is this a match? And then it was a complete match, and we've been connected ever since. And
it took us 6 months actually to get together.
Yeah, 6 months. So we worked it for a while.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that it's been an incredible journey on many levels, both because of our evolution that we've both been through. Right. We also have many levels of connection, like astrologically, Enneagram, etc. So I'm just very, very happy. And I could keep on talking, but I want to give you some time too. So
okay,
I'll let you jump in.
You've said everything I wanted to say. I guess for me, I was really ready. I think I was just, I had been in a number of relationships that had been difficult for me, and I felt like I wasn't really being myself. I wasn't being authentic in my previous relationships. And so when I got together with Melissa, I was able to really, I think I'd been in these other relationships and just kind of been almost like cataloging a library of mistakes that I was making. I was like, in my subconscious, I was in these relationships, and then as things would happen, I was cataloging things that were going wrong in the relationship. I was going, okay, the reason that this isn't working is because I'm being vague, or I'm being non-committal, or I'm acting like there's one foot out the door, or I realized that I was just doing all these things that were not really working for the relationship, and I was kind of cataloging them in the back of my mind, And then suddenly I got together with Melissa, and there's also just this incredible chemistry between us. Like, just we're both 4s in the Enneagram, and then we've just got all this amazing astrology going on. But yeah, I cataloged all these things that were going wrong, and then I got into this relationship, and I just said, okay, that one is not going to work. Vagueness is not going to work, or whatever. Non-committal is not going to work. Compassion, I need to be compassionate and loving, and I just kind of like everything started to gel as when we got together, and I started just kind of using all this stuff. And
but there's one other thing I just want to really quickly say. When we first got together, I actually had a session with my dear friend Maria Christina Al, who is a teacher and channeler. And the intention of the session was to talk about my business. And what ended up happening is that Saint Germain came in. He didn't talk about my business hardly at all. He started talking about how we both were reflecting this ancient tree of life pattern, that we have this past life tree of life pattern, and that how we're both going to offer keys to one another. And that's the most amazing, surprising thing for both of us, because what will happen is that we'll go into some, what I call sandpaper experience, where, we're rubbing each other the wrong way a little bit, and we're working it out. And then all of a sudden, one of us will say something that's like this awakened key, whoosh, and the other one just looks at each other, and we go, what just happened? But it was the exact information that we need. And we keep on popping into bigger and bigger awakening experiences together that we have this. So it's
wonderful.
Just a huge blessing.
Yay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christy.
Beautiful to hear. Very, very grateful that you guys are here with us tonight.
Thank you.
So, now, Doug and Quana. Doug and Quana have been happily married for 25 years, and I'm dear friends with them, and I've had the pleasure of watching them.
It's been quite a history. We've been together 25 years, not married 25 years, but in relationship for 25 years. We met 25 years ago, and since we met, we've never really been apart, although we did carry on our long distance relationship, and we're together on the weekends. But for a very, very long time, Doug lived in the South Bay, and I'm here in Marin. So we actually met at a high workshop in Harvard Hot Springs. If you know anything about the high work, it's about relationships and wanting to be in a conscious relationship. So it's wonderful training for doing that. And of course, we'd had 5 marriages between us. So we knew that wasn't working. And I think we were both looking for the right relationship. And right relationship meant being treated by the other the way it's the golden rule. You treat the other the way you wish to be treated. And that happened like from the very beginning, and it has always remained so. I feel like we're still dating. We're gentle and sweet with each other. We don't speak harshly to each other. We're patient. We're forgiving. We're understanding. There's so much compassion and cooperation. We want things to work out. So we treat each other as divine beings, which we know we are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And it's been easy. It's really been easy. We're very lucky. We're very grateful for our relationship, and just the way everything has worked out for us.
Yeah. Ease and grace it's really been ease and grace. You know, I was married twice before. Um, you know, I just think there's times when universe arranges itself in such a way that you meet someone that it's just really there's really not all this effort. We in 25 years we've really never had an argument. I mean, and we're just fortunate like that. Quana doesn't like to argue. I don't like to argue. There's no need to, and I just want Quana to have what she wants, and so there's no, we just don't do that dance together. And but in all honesty, astrologically speaking, we've had our chart done together, and if you know anything about trines, it's really nice to have one trine in your chart, and we have 3 trines in our chart, which supports this ease and grace, and but just this ease of being with each other. So I just find ourselves in love in Costco, and you know, at the store, you know, just all the time. And it's just it's a nice thing to bring to the field of wherever we are, and other people feel it. I mean, whether they're conscious of feeling it or not, but I think a lot of people are conscious of feeling that love in the field. And yeah, so but you know, the other part for me is when I turned 20, I just realized that life is about spirituality, and that's the whole, for me at least, the whole purpose of being here is about inquiring into the truth of who I already am. And so and so then that relates to relationship with everyone, not just in a personal, in a partner relationship or marriage type relationship, but in relationship to everyone. So my perspective is to see the divine in all I see before me, and in that way I get to stay conscious, because that's the truth of what is. Everything's divine. It's all God consciousness. So why not claim that and be aware of that, and then in that, then I'm bringing a relationship with Quana, and so I think that's having a spiritual perspective or a spiritual path, or coming to life in a kind of a focus on God or love, or the inquiry into who I already am. Then that makes everything conscious. That's, to me, is the root of how relationship is conscious.
All right.
Like that.
Yeah, when you realize finally that your partner is not the cause of your happiness or unhappiness, you are. Then you're not blaming, you're not, you know, making them wrong because you're not happy. I'll say in the first person, I'm not blaming Doug because I'm not happy. It's nothing that he's doing. It's within me. Maybe it's patterning from my past, it's fear, you know, it's not feeling that I'm enough in my own being, and wanting to have a relationship or a husband that fulfills that in me and makes me whole. It's not going to work. I have to be whole within myself. In fact, in love with myself, with my higher self, and overflowing with love that I can give to a partner and everybody else. And then, you know, eventually you're in love with everyone because you realize we're all divine and we treat each other as such. And that's where peace, at least for us, that's where peace is. Peace and harmony.
Well, I think your opening line of being willing to speak with kindness and gentleness and being soft with each other And no need to argue, as Doug said. Just don't need it. Because when you are gentle and kind, I imagine it's a lot easier to hear what the other person is trying to say. I have a need, and here's my need. And the other person's curious, like, yes, I want you to have your need met. So let's see how we can make it work.
And it takes two to argue, you know, the simple thing, just a simple thing. If two people don't want to, if just one of the two doesn't want to argue, the argument won't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a power struggle. Then, two egos aren't trying to, knock each other down, so to speak.
Right. Beautiful.
Wanting to build up.
All right. Well, wonderful. Great to have you a part of this.
Two egos aren't trying to, knock each other down, so to speak.
Right. Beautiful.
Wanting to build up.
All right. Well, wonderful. Great to have you a part of this. We're gonna begin by talking about some of these ideas, and just anything that popped up for you or was stimulated your thinking about your experiences, and sharing from your experiences about what it's like to be living in an above the line kind of relationship, and how you get yourself, when you do fall above the line. We'll open the floor at this point. There we go. Okay. All right. So welcome, everyone. So who would like to go first? Anyone have any thoughts that you want to share? Okay, Jan, go for it.
I get very excited about this because for the last decade, I have tracked women's harmonic vocal profiles. For each one of those indicators, those are specific frequencies. So even if a woman's words in approaching a partner, she feels they're positive, if she is feeling anything below the line, her partner is going to feel and get that. And if a woman is exuding any sort of triggering or fear, or feels that men betray her, that is in her vocal harmonics, and she will attract in exactly what she fears the most. So our relationships are based on unconscious resonances, and our vocal patterns are a calling card. It's not even the words we use. That's why we attract in similar patterns of betrayers or predators, or once you've learned it and you go up that ladder and you graduate, as these lovely couples have, you actually are repulsed by a person who is holding those harmonics, even in their voice. Even if a charismatic man is saying, you look lovely, or come in, you get it. You are beyond that. So part of it is wisdom and experience and making new choices. But I just wanted to point out that that's a vibrational chart. Those are labels. Each one of those you can make a tuning for. Dr. Mosen Harmonish has done that.
Yeah, I think, Melissa, you have Somatic Awakening. That's your website. And I think this is a big part of the body of work that you're doing, which is helping people to vibrate at a different frequency. So, I mean, you might want to speak to that and how it helps in relationship. Because Jan, you brought forth a really good point in that it's like the unconscious vibration in the tone. You could be saying I love you, but the vibration is sourcing from an I hate myself. So I'm going to tell you I love you to get you.
That's why lifting up to the Creator's love and divine love changes the whole picture.
So I'll go ahead and jump in, because what you just said, Jan, completely is connected to my work and is completely connected to what you were talking earlier, Christy, about in terms of the anthropos, because I know for myself that I lifted myself out of that negative, lower harmonic vibration, because I did have a relationship with a narcissist, and I've had other relationship with rageaholics and other people when I was stuck in victim consciousness. And I know that I was putting that out there and I was trying to pull myself out, but I didn't really know how. So when I went through my own dark night of the soul experience and had many different experiences come in, including Mary Magdalene coming into my day-to-day experience and teaching me actually how to bring in our higher self, divine consciousness in relationship on a somatic level, on a felt level with our patterns. And when that light and love and presence of our higher self, divine consciousness came in and was in relationship with these dark patterns, and they started to actually trust that the divine was really there, the patterns literally started to soften and dissolve. And so this process of the light coming into the dark and actually allowing ourselves to understand what it means to live in unified consciousness with our oneness absolutely is a fundamental place that we have to evolve into in order to evolve to actually be in relationship with others, so that we can communicate as Doug and I don't know how to pronounce it. My apologies. We're talking about how we can actually show up in a place where there might be anger in the field, but we still come into kindness because we're not coming from those old programs. So in essence, we need to do our work in order to step into this higher evolved pattern of relationship. And somatic awakening is the way that I do it, is the way that I teach it, but there's many different ways. So
yeah, one of the things I found when I did this Enlightened Partnership one year with a group of very powerful women like all of you, and the leaders very much involved in training and teaching people about how to become their higher self. And then they talked about that they asked their partners if they really wanted to be in relationship, and we didn't know this was going to happen. It just kind of spontaneously come out, to please have a therapist that you can work with. Because if you get triggered, rather than attack me about it, go process it with the therapist, work it out, get some clarity, find out what your needs are, release, let go, whatever, forgive, whatever you need to do before, and then we'll come together. And the guys started popping up in the circle and started talking about how excited they were about their therapist. They loved their therapist. It's like at first they were like, whoa, no, me, I don't need no therapist, but I don't need a therapist. But actually when they got into it, oh my God, what a relief it was that they had a safe person that they go through, because they were confused, like Jan was saying with her wonderful book, the languaging can be different as a woman goes through her own awakening, and then they go through theirs. It's like navigating these waters in a relationship. There's so much happening so fast sometimes, especially if we have children. And so it was really wonderful hearing the guys talk about how therapy helped them.
Yeah, I've got the same thing. Christy, can I say something?
Please.
So, I think it was like 30 years ago, and I did a year of therapy with this gentleman, and it was the same thing. My past wife said, let's go to counseling. And at first I said, no, we don't have to go to counseling. And it took me like 2 days to say, yeah, I want to go. And then, and so we went in and we saw Rob, and he said, well, who wants to go first? And I said, I'll go first. So I saw Rob for a year, and I sobbed my eyes out every time, every week for a year. And so what he shared with me was just what Melissa was sharing, and Jan. He said, I've got my files are filled with patients who have been in abusive relationships, and they get out of one, and then they go into another. It's the same person reappearing in their lives. And so the reason I think this is really a great topic is it opens the door to looking at how the mind, through my patterning, is how my life is being created, how I am creating my life, how consciousness is coming through my patterns, and my life shows up that way. And so, and it's a way for awakening, I think. It's truly a way for awakening, because if I get very discerning and looking at the details of how I'm creating my life, then I can see the vibration and the limitation, the limiting patterns and the lower vibratory patterns, and just how I'm treating myself and how I'm looking at the world. So it's really looking within, and what it evolves into is dropping all the patterns. And when there's no patterns, there's emptiness, and the emptiness is made of love. The emptiness is pure consciousness. So then and out of that comes relating to everything from pure consciousness, from the vantage point of pure being. And so that's what comes to the table. So there's the biggest benefit of relationship, because it's a constant feedback loop of what's it bringing up in me and what's being created through my patterns. And so there's a potential of discriminating. So discriminating what reality is. Who am I really? And so there's the potential of awakening and the classroom of relationship.
And that's the perfect place to awaken, is in a relationship.
Yeah.
You awaken together and help each other and support each other and talk to each other and communicate deeply, and recognizing your patterns from your past and your parental, how you were raised in your parents' home, and what that modeling taught you, which often isn't that great.
But having a level of safety, and perhaps Jan or Geej, you want to share anything on the safety in relationship? Because I think safety is like a big one, feeling safe to talk.
Yeah, well, I think
Jan, you're muted.
We're unmuted.
we're not.
I was muted.
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, I think for me, I think one of the key pieces that has helped our relationship is because of the history of patriarchy that has been so rampant through our history, that I think it's really kind of up to the man to win the trust of the woman. Like I feel like I've had to over and over again just like let her know that I'm committed, that I'm all in, that I'm 100% here. And it's not like I say that one day and then the next day I'm okay, or then, that's it. It's a constant kind of revisiting that idea that I'm in a process of gaining the feminine trust. As a man, I have this huge history of patriarchy in my gender. And so like that is something that I'm constantly working for and constantly striving for, to be trustworthy and being committed, which is this idea of safety. It brings up this idea of safety, that I'm as a man, that's kind of part of what I'm here to do, is to help her feel safe in the presence of masculine energy. So I think that's, and I think because she has such immense integrity, and I've really never had to worry about, well, no, I shouldn't say that. I mean, I think from day one I felt safe to be with her. There was just something about her that was just very trustworthy, and I always have felt safe. I always felt like I could be authentic and be myself, which has just been so key to everything. Because if I can be who I truly am, then everything just sort of follows from that, right?
Yeah.
And then I can speak and be radically honest. I can be completely vulnerable and be completely honest about what I'm experiencing, where my place is, and where I'm coming from. And Yeah.
So I'll jump in because I just want to make a remark of that. So, there's this, there's a little bit of a contradiction here, because there's the truth that we create our own safety inside of ourselves. It's really connected to, we love ourselves, we have to love ourselves and be with ourselves and create safety inside of ourselves. And that is true. And it comes from our spiritual practice. It comes from us doing our work with working with our patterns. And as we do that, we do feel more and more safe inside of ourselves. But I remember whenever we were first talking about this panel, and Geej actually shared with me this piece that he just shared about the patriarchy and a total commitment. And I started crying, because that's actually what I have felt from him. And, I'll be honest, this is the first man I've ever been with that's like, I am totally in and totally committed. I'm here for you. And you're safe. And it has made a huge impact with me in terms of how I show up, not only in this relationship, but in the world. Because not only do I have my inner masculine at my back and divine father at my back, but I have a physical man standing at my back.
Yeah.
And that makes all the difference in the world with the priestess that's launching in the world. And I have all this information that I'm sharing with the world, and it's scary. And so to have a man at my back, and that's on that level of commitment, at that level, I feel safe. It's incredible. It also is cracking me open in terms of these deeper things that are coming out. Like just last night, we had this whole cracking open crack through, I think it was because of this panel. And there was one thing that happened, and then I'll be quiet just for a moment, because I want to give the other panelists a chance to speak, but I'll just say that at the end of the night, Geej kept on saying, it's my job to, in this time, to be really nurturing. And it just melted me like a puddle. I was like, I've never had a guy actually nurture me on the level that I'm receiving. So it's really empowering, and it's very healing for me as a woman to receive.
Yeah. And G, I just want to acknowledge you too on this, because one of the couples in the past where we've done the Enlightened Partnerships was talking about being with his girlfriend out in the street, and he was just having a great old time walking down the street, and all of a sudden he noticed that she wasn't quite so open, and she wasn't quite so, and then he realized, oh, she doesn't feel safe here. It's like, I feel like if anything came at me, I could handle it. And she was like, we're not in a really safe neighborhood. And her eyes were on high alert, and she was watching. And he got this appreciation about what women have been having to deal with, in that we can't walk down the street in the dark at the night and always feel 100% safe in our world. So yeah, Jan, go ahead.
I think what we're talking about is that primal need for the feminine just to lean back and have permission to be fully feminine. If she's constantly on flight or fight or seeking for that safety, and to be honest with you, with the way traditionally the males have been wired flower to flower, she's afraid if I'm myself, if I disagree, or I don't look a certain way, or now I'm having a spiritual awakening, I'm going to scare him away and he's going to leave me for someone else. That is a gut thing. So these divine masculine guys here, oh my God, I hope you're going to give courses. I had to follow my intuition and see the future. And I was given visions that my partner put me on a white horse and patted and said, I'm here for you, and I'll provide the vehicle for you to go with the other women on your horses and change the world. He didn't tell me that, but slowly I would appreciate everything he did. I would let him win. I would ask for things in a way that he was my hero. And he started feeling like, I am winning with this woman like nobody before. Jeez. And so I got to receive more and more and more commitment. And it was win-win. And in a sense, it's traditionally female, but I was tired of being masculine. I was tired of trying to do everything. Let him be the man so I can work with this divine feminine. The other thing I wanted to say, and you touched upon it, is the way that we women hold the truth. We have anger, fear, and anguish for what has gone down in relationships. So the golden rule is how we wish that we were treated. But I recently took a sacred trip to France and Iona, and this is what I was given. Even if we are speaking our truth, there is still sometimes anguish and pushback and a resistance from the receiver. Elizabeth Warren, I think, is a perfect example. Is somewhat divisive, even though she's saying the truth, the way she says it. They said, Jan, when you are speaking to your partner, a male, remove anything in your voice. You are now following not the golden rule, the way you wish to be treated, but the platinum way, in the way he perceives he can receive the truth. Disarm his resistance to your truth. And I said, oh my God, that's just getting even deeper. So I began feeling and studying that. I'm getting more abundance and more joy. I can be more feminine. So these principles work. They really do. But then you get triggered. We used to go on silent for 3 days at the beginning before I really got the tools. We wouldn't talk, but because we didn't want to attack each other, have our patterns. We don't want to lose our relationship. We knew the joy part. So over time, it was like sandpaper of smoothing and smoothing. And now we can cycle into our resistance, and 10 minutes later, toasting our good life. So yeah, it's practice too. It's practice, it's vibration, but in a nutshell, if you are imbibing divine essence yourself, the small stuff is small stuff.
Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah. So one aspect of this conversation for me has been about working with my divine feminine, and just being conscious of that and opening to that. And I love that. I'm really androgynous, and so I think that's what it can easily come to for any men that might be listening. We all started out as females to begin with, and then some hormones were added. So the feminine is right there in all of the males, and I think that's really the balanced way of well, for me, of just being in unconditional love, of just being in acceptance. And so there's no reason to be leery of living one's divine feminine. Yeah.
It's the wholeness, being in wholeness and allowing all aspects. So
I enjoy being the man. And I basically take care of Quana. I cook for Quana. I cook and I clean the kitchen, and I serve her breakfast. I serve her lunch and dinner if she wants, and I love it.
Good cook. I can attest to that.
Yeah. So all of it. Yeah.
An added aspect of the relationship that's just so lovely. We just every day we say how grateful we are.
Yeah, every day we say
we're in gratitude.
We are grateful.
Yeah. And when you move into we call it quote unquote higher octave, that is a place of unconditional love. I mean, it's seeing things through the divine eyes of source, and there, it helps because it lessens a lot of judgment, and it makes you see we really are all the same. We really all want to be loved.
Yeah.
A lot easier to realize. Treat people with love. Treat your partner with loving kindness. Realize.
So everyone's an innocent child. I enjoy looking at it like that. Like, Christy, you're a lovely, innocent child, made of divine love.
Thank you.
We all are that.
Yeah,
so,
we all are.
But to see that and then to feel it, feel the joyfulness of it.
And that's the core.
Yeah.
That's the core of who we are.
Well, that seems to be a common theme that all of you have spoken to, the joy, and really having some joy in the relationship and being able to access the joy and whatnot. And so maybe we should spend a little bit more time maybe talking about the triggers and how do you take care of yourself when there is a trigger?
Yeah.
Anyone want to go for that one?
I'll
Yeah,
jump in.
Okay.
So, because my work has to do with this coming together of the light and the dark, just as what has already been said, relationship is a perfect container for healing and evolving. So when we get triggered, I'll just speak for myself. When I get triggered, the first thing that I need to do is, first of all, get myself to a safe place. If I'm really, really, really triggered, or if he's really, really, really triggered, okay, how much space do we need? It might be 1 minute, it might be a day, whatever is needed, so that we can come back to a sense of center. What part is actually playing? Is this a 3-year-old part or a 16-year-old part? Or who are the players inside of me, taking responsibility for that first and foremost, as compared to what I used to do, which was, it's all about him. And if he could only do da-da-da-da-da, right? So it just has already been said, because I'm repeating, but I think it deserves to be repeated, is that it's really about us taking responsibility for ourselves. And then whenever we come back together, actually doing so in as much loving kindness as is possible. And that's really what makes relationship so much smoother, whenever we can actually have compassion and kindness for one another. Another thing that we do is a lot of listening and reflecting back.
Yeah.
We empathize with each other, and that makes a huge difference. As a person who does a lot of counseling for other people, it was kind of funny whenever he would reflect me back, and my counselor mind would be going, I'm like, right, you're reflecting me back. Okay, right, that's what you're supposed to do. And then my little girl would be affected and go, oh, you're hearing me. Because it actually works.
Yeah.
Right? And then whenever we reflect each other back, then that little part, or that pattern, or that past life part, whatever it is, actually feels heard and seen and loved. And then we can come back together.
Yeah, empathy is huge. Empathy is just huge for us. I mean, for me to be able to say, oh, how would she feel the situation, or how is she feeling, and then actually for me to experience that emotion, like, oh, she's feeling sad, and like, oh yeah, I've been sad before, or I know what that feels like. Okay, so then I can come back to her and listen engagingly, so that I'm sort of on that same level with her, the same emotion. So yeah, listening and empathizing is huge.
And kindness and compassion.
Yeah.
Thank you. Jan.
I'm finding that not holding it in, I have to spend a little time saying, what's my part in this? When did I start feeling this way in my life? And usually I can identify that snowflake, that pattern. And then I take a breath and take a risk, and I say, there's something that I was just thinking about, and it's making me feel this way, and I'd like to share with you how I feel. And he's never wrong. I say, there's different ways of looking at it, and there's no right or wrong, but when this happens, this is how I feel. I take responsibility for my own feelings. I don't hold grudges. I get over it quick. And the reason I work with women's voices is that I had a severe panic attack anytime I had to speak to a male in authority until the age of 50. And I said, I've got to friggin' get over this. That's why I got into the science of monitoring fear, the harmonics of the voice, because I wanted to be empowered and not afraid to say how I feel. And now it takes about an hour for me to bring down the triggers and the flame, take a breath, and get the nerve to say it. And he'll go, of course. He said, that's not going to happen. Don't worry about that. Do you want a latte? And I'm like, oh my God, I could have stewed for a week and thought of all this scenarios. So I just bring it up.
Yeah. But I think what you said about the being afraid to speak to men of authority, I had 3 older brothers that if they didn't agree with me, I'd get beaten up or pushed
Yeah,
around or
yeah,
something,
yeah.
you know. And I was constantly trying to figure out, you know, they were older than me and faster and smarter and all of that. And I was this happy, joyous, free little
Oh.
kid that just wanted to sing and dance. And they were like, oh my God. So but finding my voice and the work that I did with you around finding my voice was really, really important work, because we did a workshop together on that, and then we went and did a ritual on it. And you know, of course,
Yeah.
Mary Magdalene has that famous Peter's hand is across Mary Magdalene's throat, cutting off her voice. And the movie The Little Mermaid, you know, Ariel lost her voice. So this is a really hard thing. And Marianne Williamson was speaking at one of her conventions, and she's going around the country, and she says, you know, 51% of the women, I have yet to meet a woman that's okay that we have 17,000 children a day dying of starvation.
Yeah.
But where's the American woman's voice? And she brought forth on the stage one of the top witch burning experts of the Salem witch burning. Shut us up. That thread of that impact of all the witch burning has like kind of carried through, and slowly, you know, and not having our own money and having our own way to take care of ourselves. And we got our credit cards in our own name was until the 70s. My mother, when she was born, she didn't have the right to vote as a woman, you know. So it's been this slow unfolding of women coming into. That's why I've been so passionate about bringing forth this empowered model of Mary Magdalene was an enlightened being, and she stood up to Peter, and she spoke to Peter with the clear determination, and she made her connection, and she heard Jesus teaching, and she understood she was one. And so it's like there's a lot that we missed out on because she got suppressed, and she was not allowed to be presented to us as little girls as this empowered enlightened woman. She was presented to us as this prostitute sinner who is bad. And so, you know, it's a level of the DNA conditioning that's
Absolutely.
been going on for centuries. Anyway, Doug, you had something you wanted to share.
Well, Melissa already said it, but taking responsibility for myself. If I have a contraction about something, then I just need to take responsibility for it, because I'm creating the conscious. I'm living consciousness, and the energy is going through the patterning, and somehow, who knows, I've gotten contracted about something. And there's no such thing as victimhood. No one's doing anything to me. I'm doing it all to myself. So just being, just listening and just being in silence, or just listening to it, or just looking within and saying, how did I create this? How? And so it's really it's a tool for awakening. I really get it's a tool for awakening. Just taking responsibility. It can be about taking responsibility in a relative way, in a way where I'm still identified with being, in name and form, so to speak. But it can also, taking responsibility can be a way of opening and keying into my divine self. Because if I'm taking responsibility for who I really am, I'm being quiet, and I'm noticing the silence that I actually arise from. So, and then what Geej said about empathy, just loving all that's before me, and listening and listening. That's I used to work at a rehab. I was a counselor there, and just people want to be heard. That's what people want. I visited a friend of mine in the hospital today, and he's 80 years old, and he was a caregiver last week. This week he's in the hospital for who knows how long because he fell. And I went and I listened to him, and he talked for an hour, and people want to be heard. So, and they feel better. So empathy.
Well, I think, yeah, Melissa, I was going to call on you too, because you're the whole thing about the parts thing. And we have on the line with us today, Sheila Jacobs, who does a lot. She's one of the leading marriage and family therapists who in this country, who's been doing a lot of work on the parts. And I think, like Jan said, finding out what part of ourself, is it the little girl, is it the teenager, and a lot of that is unconscious to us unless we actually, like Doug said, take some time and get quiet and look in, like, what part of me is reacting here to this situation. And Melissa, go ahead.
Well, it's interesting. I'm just going to tie all of that together, because the one word that I wanted to speak to when Doug was talking before you said that was sovereignty.
Oh.
And bear with me for a moment, because it'll tie all together, because sovereignty is so incredibly important, because you're giving the other person permission to be exactly who they are. My sister, who's from the South, she recently visited me, and she really phrased it really well. She says, "You do you." And now it's our mantra between Geej and I, and my daughter and I, "You do you." And so in that process, what I have found in my own journey of really stepping into my sovereignty, it's completely connected to what you were talking about a moment ago in terms of the witch burnings and what has happened to the feminine over thousands of years. And for me, I'm the type of person who I actually remember many, many lifetimes where lots of horrific things happen. And so when I was younger, being in relationship was a very unconscious part that I had to track for many years to be able to present, which said, in order for me to survive, I need to take my heart out of my chest and give it to you, because you're the man and I need you in order to survive. So what I had to do in order to do that is to track not only my conscious parts, but these really deep unconscious past life parts that were terrified in my DNA and in the psyche of my soul. They were terrified, and I had to really presence them and step into a place of my own self-love and say, I'm not giving my heart away to anybody. My heart is my heart. And I get to be in my sovereignty. I get to be me, and I get to love you, and you get to be you. And in that process, I'm no longer subconsciously, passively manipulating another person, because my heart is outside of my heart and I'm giving it to them, and that's preventing them from being in their sovereignty.
Wonderful. Beautifully said.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now that feels very important, because if we're always merging and trying to please the other person, there's nobody on our base.
Got it.
And there's nobody there to really get to know, because they're leaning over towards you all the time.
Or vice versa, or running away while you're grabbing, or whatever that is. Yeah.
Juana, you have some thoughts on this?
Yeah. It's like I was always giving myself away. When in other relationships, in past relationships, I would just give myself away. I didn't even know who I was anymore. I was a chameleon trying to please my partner so that I would be acceptable and he would stay with me, and we'd have a fairly peaceful life together. But it took years to realize that wasn't who I was. To claim my own feelings and my own worth was a really core wound. Worthlessness, not okay, not good enough. And I think a lot of women share that. So when we finally can start loving ourselves, then we have enough love to give to others.
Yeah. And it's
Self-love. Can't let that go by without saying a word about self-love.
yeah.
So self-love, to me, it's a lovely thing in the relative world, so to speak, to practice self-love, and then in looking deeper and just being in that type of self-awareness of self-love, it can transform to love of self. the capital S self. So then self becomes self. The small self becomes the capital self. So there's no difference between the two. So self-love is, like, in my mind, a path all to its own for awakening.
So thank you, Doug. And at this point, I know, Melissa, you and Geej have to move on, and I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about the work that you guys do and your offering to the community here. Let people know how to reach you, and I will post later in the video. There will be your website and how to get a hold of both of you if they want to use your talents and skills and whatnot. But
Thank you. Thank you.
and if you want to take a question or comment from anyone, we can ask anyone in the participants who would like to unmute themselves and ask you anything, because I know you're going to be jumping off soon.
Sure, totally open to that. And there's one thing that Geej just brought out just a little bit that I want to highlight a little bit more, and of course jump on in if you want to. And that is one of the key components of our relationship that started really, really early on. I think the first week, we agreed to radical honesty with each other. Now, we're not talking about radical honesty where we don't honor the other person. We're talking about radical honesty with the understanding that we're being kind and compassionate to each other.
Yeah.
And the kind of honesty and the things that have come through in our relationship, it actually has nurtured an authentic intimacy, because then our hearts both are in presence together. Then we can actually be intimate in presence. And that's another important component of our relationship. Like, we have practices where we go into presence, where we say, okay, is there anything that hasn't been said? What needs to be said, so that we can really be authentically present? And that's when we're the most connected, we're the most intimate, the sex is amazing, our connection is amazing, and that just nurtures and nurtures and nurtures the third body of who we are. So I just wanted to say, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, you've said everything. Yeah.
Okay, great. Great.
Thank you guys so much for being a part of this. And if anyone who's listening would like to unmute yourself and make a comment or ask a question of the group or individuals, you can do that. I'm sure that, like Sheila, I just unmuted. Oh, there you go. Colette, yes.
Hi. Hi.
Hey,
Hey.
Colette.
Hi, Colette.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, hi. Hi, Fauna. I just want to thank you guys, all of you, for sharing this and sharing your stories. They're so inspirational, and I'm 63 years old. I have not met my partner yet in this life, and I'm still trusting that I will. So just hearing the stories and your background, how you got together, I would like to create a clone of somewhere a mixture of Geej and Doug, but I don't know if that's possible, because part of this is, like, what I'm hearing is, their commitment to the relationship, and I'm realizing that first and foremost, there needs to be that love, and so that's, anyway, it's just been, I just want to thank you guys, because it's just inspirational to hear, and I'm still holding the possibility of finding that partner, and something Jan said too I want to comment on, which is where you said, Jan, early on, that you wanted to live a higher version of yourself, and that I connect with that too. I think it took me a long time, in linear time here to get there, but I'm feeling like I could do it now. So anyway, thank all of you.
Thank you so much, Colette. It was nice that you joined us. Sheila?
Sure. So I just was curious when Geej's partner, that Sophia had said the third body. I'd like to understand more of that concept.
Thank you for asking that question. I really appreciate it. So the third body is here's a perfect example. There is, and I forget the name of it off the top of my head, but there is a sacred symbol of the divine feminine that is two circles. And the circles, they overlap. So in the center,
Sophia.
yes. What is it called?
The
Vesica
Sophia.
Pisces.
I mean Pisces.
Vesica Pisces. Yeah, the
Yeah,
Vesica
but
Pisces.
it's the
Yeah.
So in that process, there's this third aspect, and it's an almond shape. So this is what's known as the third, right? So if you were to take two human beings and actually put their energy fields together, there's the third body. I don't actually see it as the almond shape, like in the Vesica Pisces, but it's like, so imagine like here am I, and here's Geej, and here's our energy body, and there's our individual energy bodies, and there's the third energy body that's created from the combination of both of us. And in my experience of it, it actually has a life of its own as we connect over time. So the longer you're together, the stronger the third body is, especially if you're nurturing it, you're aware of it, you're committed to it.
Great, thank you. And then I have a question for Jan, if I can ask Jan.
Sure.
I'm very, what's the word? I was very touched when you talked about the harmonics of the pattern that you connect. You know, it's just very amazing that you've somehow measured it, or you can you say a little bit more? Is that research, or I can't quite understand.
I work with two programs. The Voice Bio can track the frequencies of your voice, and I can show a woman in areas where she has low notes, her adrenals are low. I can correlate it to 26, as a nurse, different decompensational states of your physical body. The other day, on a scale of 1 to 3, a woman had 5 frequency hits on a certain note, which means she's the one that everybody takes advantage of. This is the scientific program. It's called the Voice Bio. I do that in person.
Someone
Now,
speaks, and then
they speak into a microphone in a
measures the frequencies, and you can just see it.
It shows me an actual pattern. So I said, okay, so I walked this thing of helping women see what they're creating in megaphone and bathing. I said, how do we get rid of it? So I was shown by spirit to actually make a tone. That woman makes a tone, and I lock onto the frequency in her voice and go down into the actual initial trauma and use my voice in an intuitive way to actually dissolve, unlock the original stuck frequency pattern. That's what I did with you, Christy. It's called voice release.
Right.
Spirit gave me the picture. I did it at the University of Washington last week with 6 women. Phenomenal. And every woman in the room that has that same fear pattern in her voice, which I intuitive and I kind of merge with her and feel it, sound into it. Everyone in the room that holds that same archetype pattern within their body is freed of it through sympathetic resonance. So it's called voice release. And I do that in groups, or I do it one-on-one in my Zoom room, but that's kind of something I created with spirit, of course.
Yeah.
Because I grew up in a family using sign language. My family was deaf. So I'm
No, but you probably have had the experience of when you spoke something, you weren't met with respect, or you weren't met with open,
or I wasn't heard,
or somebody's like, they don't want to listen to you, because that's what I found for myself, is that, that's why it's really hard for us to have a woman president, because there's a lot of men who are conditioned to the female voice, and when they hear the voice get a little high, it just it's like nails on a chalkboard kind of thing.
For you, Sheila, listen to this. It's not the words. That is just a sound stream of the feelings and intention. Yeah. The intention guides everything. So you were feeling what your family was communicating. Words don't really matter. It's the thoughts themselves carry the very strong vibration, and this sound stream delivers it in a certain way, but you are feeling what other people, most of what happens in communication is unconscious.
But I do think because I didn't speak in my family and they couldn't hear my voice, it has affected me.
Absolutely.
And how I interact with hearing people that don't sign. So I'm very curious in following up with you. So I really appreciate all that you've all shared. Thank you for hosting this wonderful event, Christy.
Yes, and so Melissa and Geej, I think you guys are going to take off. So thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate your honoring us with your presence, and your wonderful shares were fabulous. I really
Appreciate it.
honor everything you guys are doing, and it's just incredible. I really appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Christy. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yes. And if anyone wants to just find out more about my work or connect to either one of us, you can just look me up online, www.somatic-awakening.com.
Yeah, and it'll be on the
Oh, that's right.
video that will be sent out to everyone later.
Great.
Okay.
All right. Bye,
All right.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Good night.
Good night.
So we can open it up if anyone else has any other questions. I mean, Jan, I think your body of work, in particular with your book, I love this book because, you know, to me, what Doug and Quanah have achieved in their relationship, to be so respectful and so kind, is very difficult in a lot of relationships, you know, because the divine masculine has been up here, and like it's been mentioned tonight, as like the patriarchy and the power and having power, and now the divine feminine is coming up, and it's like a lot of men are threatened by it. They feel like if the divine feminine comes up, she's going to take over, and she's going to suppress me because I suppressed her, or some insane thing, you know. And so they're frightened by it, and even women are frightened by it. You know, I have women that roll their eyes at me when I tell them I'm doing another divine feminine thing, you know, because the conditioning is so hard. And I know Doug and Quanah, you guys really do step in and claim your divine nature, and you hold that as a real authentic practice that you do. That's not a commonplace thing that happens in this world, that a couple is so okay with, I'm divine and you're divine, and we're claiming it, and we're allowing, but then you get the benefits of it. You get the joy and the peace and the happiness, and you get to do what you want, and I get to do what I want, and we don't fight. And so many good things come out of that claiming, you know. So anyway, that's what I'm putting forth, because the future could be a future of heaven on earth if we're willing to allow ourselves. And I know, Jan, you like navigated those waters so brilliantly with so many people in your workshops and stuff. So any thoughts or comments that you want to make on
Heaven on earth now? You know,
Yeah.
heaven on earth now. There's no, in my mind, there's no reason that is not true, except something I might make up in my mind, or some unconscious patterning that I'm projecting out there. So there's the taking responsibility for my projections. There's the taking responsibility for not listening to the truth of who I am. But I think you said it. It's all right there, Christy. Heaven on earth is now. It's the only reality that's real. You know, it's the only truth that truly is. And so, heaven on earth now. I love it. That's the frequency to share from and to speak of.
You know, I was thinking of heaven on earth, and then you said it, and you two are modeling it, and there you have the universe. This is a perfect example of the fifth dimension.
Yeah.
We're all on the same
we
page.
have a corner of the fifth dimension on
And you two are just modeling it as the masculine, divine, feminine. And gosh, I mean, everybody that listens to this is going to get this heaven on earth feeling.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
Sheila, I'm going to start thinking about what you said and what that means. I've never had someone bring me that specific question. So I'm going to start doing some reflection and get some information on that question. So thank you for bringing that up. I get what you're saying.
cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
That is higher octave. That is stepping into the higher octave.
Yeah.
Higher octave of unconditional love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question about that?
Sure.
Kwana.
Juana.
Juana.
Juana like the goddess.
So when you had said that earlier, I thought you said octave, but I wasn't sure, and I had wanted to clarify that. So I would love for you to explain a little more what that really means.
Claiming.
Claiming the
The
higher.
word octave.
Okay, it's a higher vibration. So it's a high vibration. A high vibration of, on a scale of vibration, love is an extremely high vibration.
So,
So being in love, it's feeling love.
So you have shared that you were married before, where it was a lower octave, lower
Yeah.
vibrational octave.
Certainly much more in my ego, in my small self.
Do you
in
feel
fear.
that you attained the higher octave before you met this partner? Or as you met, you created a higher octave? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I think after we met and we're in relationship, then I could see and feel that I was much more in joy and peace and love.
But you were conscious of the higher frequency before you met him, right? You were working on that individually, if I may
Yes.
ask. That's what it
Yes.
seems like.
Okay, here's a good example. You know the song Higher Love?
Yes. Yeah.
That's it.
It's like going up a frequency ladder. And what I get from you two, this isn't your first rodeo. You actually came back in this lifetime, recognized each other, and so you built upon the vibrational level that you'd achieved in another lifetime, and probably said, we want to come back and be together and model this. So
Thank you, Jen.
Yeah.
We thought that ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, the several couples talked about the astrology behind their relationship and how it showed that there was this higher work or higher connection, higher frequency vibration that was happening that brought them together. Yeah, go ahead.
and a big part of the becoming conscious of the higher octave or the higher dimension or the fifth, whatever dimension, and the higher dimensions is what I've come to see is claiming it, actually embracing it, to actually being I am the truth of all I see before me, or I just the claiming of it, I think, is the clearest way to say it. The embracing, and in the embracing of it, it's the embrace with the divine, because the divine comes through, and all of a sudden I'm not trying to eclipse the divine self. I'm not standing away. I'm not shadowing it by insisting that I'm in charge of everything. But in the embracing of it, I'm surrendering to it simultaneously. I'm letting my insisting that, oh, I'm in charge, to know I'm following you. I'm surrendered at the divine's I'm surrendered to awareness. I'm surrendered to the truth of who I already am.
Right.
So, but it's the claiming of it is a big piece that I didn't get. And I didn't get for, there's all these different spiritual traditions but the claiming of it is I think really super, super important. And in the claiming of it, the divine self supports my energy, my energetic field of being present with the divine self, of actually joining with it. So there's the union of self-realization.
Yeah.
And I am here as the divine self, and the divine self is here as me, and in that we are one and the same. And like that.
in a sense, it's an end to duality because it is who you are. And if you're not saying it, you're referencing outside yourself what people think, and that's fear. Fear vibrates between 200 and 400. Not till you hit 732 hertz and 800 do you achieve the first levels of Christ consciousness. This is from my teacher, but I've tracked it in electromagnetic auric pictures. So we want to be over 800 frequency going up that ladder. And that's where two like-minded souls resonating can create a divine union.
Right. And then feeling yourself, at least, you know, what I'm hearing also being spoken about is that clearing out and the releasing and the letting go and the forgiving and all the work that we do to get all those unconditional patterns let go of, and then bringing in this higher energy, either through the voice work that Jan's talking about doing, then the resonance makes you, you know, law of attraction. You can attract a higher vibrational being into your world. And you know, I just went through a big move, and there were things about it that I was not so happy about, uprooting myself from my community, my family. And I'm sitting there and I'm going like, well, I'll do what I love. What do I love? I love doing things like this. Like, I've been so happy tonight, you know, to talk to all of you and put forth the highest ideas, you know, and inspire each other and open our hearts and hear wisdom. Like, we have a culture that's so devoid of wisdom, you know, and to just be in right relationship and hearing people that are actually also committed to, yeah, we're committed to joy, we're committed to peace. And I thank all of you for being willing to show up and be part of it, including the participants who are willing to come out, because I didn't, you know, I had so much going on with trying to this move and everything, and I normally do this every year, and I thought, well, I'm not going to do it. Well, maybe I'll just do it as a Zoom thing, and I didn't have enough time to really market it, and I was like, oh, forget it. I'm just going to do it. I can market it later. I can send it out to more people. But you see the richness and it's just so much good shared, so much wisdom shared. Yeah, Doug.
This is a new virus.
Yeah, a new virus. Yeah, love virus.
Yeah. And thank you for putting it on, because it's a conversation about truth. It's a conversation about divinity, and it's a conversation about self. And so what I noticed, the big benefit, the big learning about how these types of conversations are experienced is that my attention follows my focus. So my attention follows my focus. So here the focus is about the divine self and about the truth of what is, about heaven on earth. And so my attention goes there, and it reinforces and it really embodies it because I'm feeling it. So thank you for putting it on, Christy. It's a satsang in truth.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I ask a definition from the gentleman, Juana's partner? Yeah. I'm sorry. Doug? Is it Doug?
Yes.
Doug, because I don't see the name. So Doug, could you define, please, the fifth dimension for me?
So in this particular, the way I look at it is, in this particular dimensional field of being, in this human existence or this human experience, it's like a spectrum of awareness, and it's all frequency. But there's lower, contracted, and as the frequency goes up or as the frequency goes down, it's fear. At the bottom is like really fearful, like fear. And as it goes up into the more ethereal frequency, the higher frequencies, the fear is all light has exposed all the fear, and the fear can't be there after light's exposed it. So so that's the process, I think, is being exposed or putting myself or surrendering to the light. But so as I go higher, that's the higher dimensions.
So can I ask, what is
I'd
one?
like to just comment on it too, just for a second. It's like the density of matter that gets more and more dense, heavier, and whatnot. And we're really spirit. And, you know, opening ourselves, opening up like a flower, lotus flower, elevating our spirit, bringing in more light, bringing in more love, bringing in more higher frequencies. And then suddenly you're in a lighter, more peaceful place. That's moving into the fifth dimension. You know, that's, and the body can be shifted and changed because the energetic impact of perfect health, of perfect love, of perfect peace makes the dense matter that was all contracted and constricted and heavier in the third dimension, where it's just, you know, what you can cut, dice, slice, and, you know, and there's no consciousness being recognized, then it's bringing in that consciousness that can shift things and change things and give people the fifth dimensional experience of love.
So is there a first, second, third, and fourth dimension from your point of view? And
yeah, first,
Well,
you know, singular, and then 3D. So that makes third dimension when you have linear height, and then you have depth, and that's form. And then from form, it goes into a level of emotional body energy field.
the
And
third body kind of thing?
Yeah, it goes into the fourth dimension. And Jan knows a lot about this too. The frequencies get higher and the vibrations get more open and lighter and peaceful and happy, joyous, free. And then go ahead, Jan, you take it away.
well, you were saying it so perfectly, and we're all saying it so interestingly and perfectly. The way I look at it, in the third dimension, people have decided to have an agreed upon experience, a parallel reality of the third dimension, which is basically socially fear-based. It was extinguishing the potential for sustainable life on Earth. So a new plan was superimposed on Earth by various human beings coming within the blueprint of their very being, a fifth dimensional vibration. So these beings, to various degrees, have fought against it. Who am I? Why am I different? Who now are meeting and circling up, and very high vibrations are coming through. They're simply opening up. They're meeting other people with high vibration, and they're creating a new, lighter, more etheric, parallel slice of reality that they are residing in together. Like here, what we're doing when two or more are gathered with this vibrational over 800 frequency hertz, we've gone up a ladder together. We say, I want to stay here. And we can stay here as long as we have positive thoughts. And pretty much the third dimension, the fifth dimension, this fourth dimension, which isn't a place where a lot of people reside, but the ones who are going to stay in a divine, smaller circle of humans on Earth, the meek shall inherit the earth. Those that are vibrating higher are in co-creation, in harmony with divine principles, are going to create a whole new reality that won't, it'll be like oil and water. It's not going to reference a frequency parallel reality that it no longer resonates with. Does that make sense? So I help women who are leading, making bridges from the third to the fifth, get all the fear and triggers out of their field. So when the women call for truth, for benevolent care, for caring for the elderly and children, now I sound like Elizabeth Warren, but when we are resonant bells of goodness and truth,
Right.
and people listen, we're creating a dominating high frequency field of a new world.
Yeah.
That's why you're called to do this. That's why we're here.
We want to live in the high frequency field.
Yeah.
And we can go through miracle, instantaneous healing, we think, my partner and I think, well, we might want this. Be careful what you wish for, because suddenly there we are, getting exactly what we want.
All of that. So well said, Jan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that one piece, agreed upon experience. So in my programming, it just stuff came in. I get programmed. I'm just like everyone else, and I take on these programs. So I think the moving into higher dimension comes out of a really questioning of my programming, my experience, because the world is really, their agreed upon experiences, agreed upon. These are like from the dark ages. I mean,
Yeah, we need to
they're
change
not-
our mind and have a more
What?
sustainable, joyous world.
The fact that you are speaking the truth of who you are and your recognition, I mean, that is huge.
Yeah.
You're not just living it, you're modeling it and you're claiming it. I am so impressed. I'm going to do better at that.
We're coming to the end of our time here. I mean, I loved what the men had to say tonight on this call. And I think that for me, when I hear men speak in this way, in partnership with the feminine, and the feminine's validating them back and saying, yes, he's doing that with me. Yes, I'm feeling safer. Yes, it's working. It's like so important for people to know the possibilities, that is possible. And that's the purpose
feeling it. It's
yeah.
not just knowing it, but
No.
feeling it. I can feel it.
Yeah, you can feel they're beautiful, loving, kind, compassionate people, and and Jan too. Your work is so extraordinary, and I'm just so thrilled to have you. And I just want to thank you again so much for coming and joining me. And maybe we need to have a series of this. I mean, I think Barbara Marx Hubbard was right on about this, and as we spread the word, I do it at least every year on February 22nd, but it certainly doesn't have to just be that, but it's something to think about, because I think that's what, when I heard, and I'm imagining other men say, no, I do the therapy work. I do the work inside to clear my fear, to look at my patterns, and to take responsibility that this was my pattern and I was creating my life from that pattern. But I don't want the result of that, so I'm going to let it go, is so important for others to hear. Oh, well, then maybe then I can do that too. So anyway, I thank everyone for joining us and coming on. That was 2 hours. It just
Wow.
so we do have to wrap it up. But thank you again,
Feel
everyone.
Feel this.
Let's take closing comments. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say, just feeling this incredible lightness of being.
Yeah.
I think totally comes out of the conversation.
Yes.
Or just the focusing on it leads to the experience of it.
Yes.
And I would say, once people start realizing the truth of who they are, which is a divine being, which we all are, then we will move into the fifth dimension very easily and very gently, because that's what the fifth dimension is: unconditional love.
Right.
And change only comes when people see something outside of themselves, a new experience. So thank you for modeling the new vibration.
All right.
Well, I would like to pitch for another, meeting again, maybe monthly, even for 2 more months, because I can invite people, you guys can invite people, we could have this again, seems like very easily.
Yes.
And there's a big need in this world for this.
Yes, thank you so much. I just unmuted everyone. I just wanted to say goodbye and
thank you.
Thank you.
It was lovely being here. Thank you, Christy. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
See you.
Blessings to all. And we will take it all together. You can always email me any of your thoughts or comments at gospelofmarymagdalene.info, and my email is magdalenegospel@gmail.com. So thank you.
Bye. Take care, everyone.
Take care.
I enter this moment, I focus my will, I open my consciousness, breathing, I am still, breathing, I am still. I dedicate this body, I dedicate this place, a vessel for holiness, surrender to grace, I surrender to grace. Forgiving the past, relinquish the future, I choose this moment, I choose love, I choose love. Nai nai na 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 nai na nai nai na na nai 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 na 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 nai na nai nai na na nai 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 na na nai 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 na 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 nai na nai nai na na nai 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 na 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 nai na nai nai na na nai 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 nai. I enter this moment, I focus my will, I open my consciousness, breathing, I am still, breathing, I am still. I dedicate this body, I dedicate this place, a vessel for holiness, surrender to grace, I surrender in grace. Forgiving the past, relinquish the future, I choose this moment, I choose love, I choose love. Nai, nai,